Hi, and welcome to today's episode of the Successful Franchisee's Beautiful View. I am so honored to have on the show today with me Richard Gould of Richard's Painting Franchising. And he's going to explain about his business, his background, and who he's looking for to fill his franchisee spot. So, Richard, welcome. And I just saw this morning that you were ranked number 321 in the Entrepreneur 500 for franchisees. Congratulations. And tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into franchising.
Well, thank you for the, compliment. Being on that list is a pretty significant feat in the Richards painting world. That was something 4 years ago when I first started doing this. I never thought I would, even have a chance to be on any sort of list. In fact, I didn't even know there was a list until I started franchising. But now that I'm on it, it's quite humbling, and it actually motivates me to want to do more. So that's great. Getting into franchising. I'm originally from New Jersey, and I worked for one person painting since I'm 19 years old, and his name was Don Greer, great guy. Still talk to him to this day. He's 88 years old, and worked for him for 7 years, and he was ready to retire. And I took the business over from him, for a small amount of money, and ran that business for 5 years. Then I decided that I wanted to move, and chose North Carolina as a place to go because, well, A, my brother already lived here, and I thought in a 10-year plan, I thought it would be better than where I was. So as I sold my business in New Jersey, and moved to North Carolina. And at the very beginning, I really thought I made the biggest mistake of my life. I said, I was fairly successful. I was doing pretty good. I decided to come to North Carolina, start all over again, and damn, it's harder than you think. Especially, being a Yankee, from the north, being in the South in a small town. We're here in Salisbury, North Carolina, and the reason you say Salisbury, because if you say Salisbury, then they know you're not from here, right? So, that's something I learned early on. But when my goal was at this point was I knew that all I had to do was to get in front of people, right, and prove to them how much better we were, how much better I was, and just did all the things that nobody else was doing. Um, and through that process, I went from having no work, not knowing anybody, to generating over $1 million in sales every single year for the last, 5 to 7 years. And I've been here, in business in North Carolina for about 13 years. So then I was at a point where I felt like, okay, well, I kind of conquered this now. Now what do I want to do? Do I want to grow the business? How do I want to do it? I'm not the kind of person who likes to travel far and for work. I don't want to drive an hour one way or another way. And, because A, I feel like the money is the same no matter how far you go. All it does is cost you more. So, but nevertheless, so I decided that I thought maybe franchising was the way to go to kind of expand the business, grow, and have other people have just as much responsibility as the success as I do. So what I did was I went and started another location in a town called Mooresville here in North Carolina, Lake Norman. Um, and what I wanted to do was prove to myself, is it just me that makes this really successful, or is it what we do, right? And so I went out, started that location, started with zero, hired somebody to, a manager to run it, and we went from, doing $0 to, $250,000 within the first year. So I thought, okay, I think that this works, and it doesn't have to be me. Okay, so that's when I decided that it was, probably a good idea. I can franchise this, and somebody else can be successful. Um, I remember not knowing anything about franchising. I didn't even know what an FDD was, right? Forget about, I had called some people uh, at Franchise Fastlane because I saw them on on LinkedIn and saw them selling franchises like as if they were giving them away. So I thought, well, maybe those are the people I got to call if I'm going to do this. Well, I call him up and I talk to Ryan, who was in charge there at the time, and he says, "How, he's talking about the business, blah blah blah." He's like, "Oh, do you have an FDD?" I'm like, "No." Again, I said, "What's that?" And he said, "Oh, well, you're not ready for us yet." So I said, "Okay." So he puts me in touch with a guy named Tim Connor, who runs franchise marketing systems, and for a fee, he helps me put my FDD together. We do a little bit of marketing together, and I'm off to the races, right? And as many people tell you in franchising, it never goes as well as you think it's going to go. It's really hard to sell, I think anyway, a business model that isn't proven yet, right? Like, how do you know if it's going to work? So, getting those people at the beginning to believe in you and to help you sell it, you gotta have some patience and some perseverance. So what I did was, because I didn't have $1 million budget, if you see these franchise brands right now, they're going from 0 to 100 in a year, and they're spending, a couple $1 million to do it. I didn't have that. I had some money, but not that much, just to hope it worked. And so I decided I was going to go after a different group of people. I was going to go after people maybe nobody else was looking at. So I figured I can get some people who have lower funds, who maybe have a desire to want to be successful but just don't know how. And the bigger brands are never going to talk to them because they don't have the finances or anything to get involved. So I took a lot of people on at the beginning who, we were doing $5,000 down payment on the franchise fee, and they're spending, a couple $100 a month on marketing. And that's how I started. And I was doing my own biz buy sell ads, some Google ads, entertaining every single phone call, doing everything. Um, and it worked for a while, but it's challenging in its own right, because when you have as you get into franchising more and more, when you realize that if you're not funded, or you don't have the funds to kind of do it the best way possible, there's always going to be a little bit of challenge here, a little bit of challenge there, that maybe somebody else might not have. So fast forward to where we are now. Still doing biz buy sell ads, still do those on my own. But I also work with Ari and David at Red Rock Franchise Development, which, they kind of have relationships with brokers and consultants, and they help out, really, helping us out. I sold my first franchise with a consultant here in Johnson City, Tennessee, just about a month ago. So that process is moving, is going good. But it's nothing is overnight success, right? Right now we're at 21 locations. And gosh, when I first started, getting to three felt like it was, an eternity, right? And then once you start, you're at 10, 15, 20. It's like, wow, I can't believe, I'm at where I am. I mean, I want to do more, don't get me wrong, right? But it's just gosh, it's a lot.
It is. And you brought up a great point early on in your career of when you moved from New Jersey to North Carolina, you had to grow your network again. People didn't know you.
That's right.
How did you go ahead and how did you do that? And how can you benefit your franchisees by helping them do the same?
That's exactly why I really started franchising, because I realized when I took over the business in New Jersey, gosh, it was easy. He was in business for 40 years, right? I just kind of just, filled in and continued on where we were. And that was easy. Still has hard work in its own way, but when you have to go somewhere and you don't know anybody, it's challenging. So I made lots of mistakes. I did lots of things wrong, but I finally figured out what it takes to develop relationships faster, quicker. And one of the biggest things about Richard's painting that I like, for what we offer, is we try to make the business startup and the cost of running that business as economical as possible, right? Most of our franchisees and most of the people getting involved, we're not looking for somebody who wants to come in and say, I'm going to do $1 million the first year, right? In our business model, it doesn't, you can do it, right? But it just would take so much money, so many resources, and you would make so many errors that you would hurt yourself way more than help yourself. So we like our franchisees to say, okay, we're going to hopefully have a projected gross sales of 150 to 250,000, right? That's kind of typical for your first year. But we're also going to have a budget of $750 a month on our marketing, right? We're going to get out there and knock on doors. We're going to make, relationships with all different types of contractors and decorators and try to build that network. And really, it's really about creating awareness, right? And once with our customers anyway, and with our business, we're really trying to provide an experience. It's not necessarily the painting, right? People really want people to call back, people to show up, right? People to live up to what they say they're going to do, right? But we also are big on underselling and over delivering, right? It's really hard to disappoint people when you always undersell and you always over deliver, right? Many people in sales, especially, they oversell and underdeliver more often than the opposite, right? Even, like I try every franchisee, I try to tell, listen, if you can go into somebody's house or business or whatever, and if you tell them you're going to make these walls smooth as glass, you're just setting yourself up for failure, right? What you're better off saying is, hey, these walls are pretty bad, but we're going to make them better, right? And then when they look better than they anticipated, you look like a hero, and you didn't do anything more than what you would have done normally, right? But it's all in the perception of what that customer's expectations are. So, plus, hiring painters and technicians, people call them, that have great personalities, who represent your brand well, who represent the owner like as if it's their own business, and when the customer really likes those people coming into their house or business, that puts you ahead of everybody else. Because when you can have, somebody can come in and do a great paint job, but if the experience and the people doing it never felt comfortable, they'll always say, well, it was okay. It was, they did a good, they painted it, right? They got it done. But when you have people who are in their house where when you leave, they're like upset you're leaving, they want you to stay, right? Because they enjoyed having you there so much that the painting actually becomes irrelevant, right? It's not even about that. And then also in our world of pricing, right? Teaching, we price jobs in a certain way that you're always trying to maximize your profits, right? You're trying many service businesses, especially painting, they'll have dead set numbers. This house is 5,000 square feet, it's $4 a square foot, it's $20,000. Well, that sounds great, right? But in every market's unique, right? It depends on who your competition is, depends on who you're bidding against, depends on what that person's willing to spend, right? And so, we have this formula where we have like a basic price that we try to come up with, and then we dictate everything based on the customer, how busy we are, how slow we might be, are they getting any other estimates? And then you take all this data and you put it together and you come up with the best price possible. And that allows us to maximize profits when available, because there's many jobs, how much can you charge somebody to paint a bedroom, right? Ideally, you'd love to charge $2,000 every time you did it, but you'd have three customers, right? So realistically, a bedroom's going to be 950, right? And so sometimes that bedroom's going to be really quick and sometimes take a little bit longer. And as we tell our franchisees, you don't look at every single job as having to be the most profitable. It's what we got at the end of the year, because there's going to be jobs that you're going to make a 50% profit on. Some you're going to make 10, some you're going to make 30. But at the end of the year, if you're around 30%, net profit, then we're doing the right thing. So, anyway, I can go on and on. As you can see, I'm pretty passionate about this.
I love it. Now, you were talking about you do have some franchisees now. What are you learning to refine your process to make sure you're bringing on the right people and the right fit for Richard's painting?
Oh, I know I hear all these stories about people rejecting people and saying they're not right and this and that and the other thing. So, how do I say this? It's an imperfect process, right? You can generally, all right, so you're going to talk to somebody and they'll have some key, just like when you're trying to give an estimate, right? You're trying to read the person when you're talking to them on a phone. And you're going to hear people, have different their philosophy on business, right? And generally, when somebody's telling you their philosophy on business, they're probably not going to be a good fit because how are they ever going to want to learn what we do and listen to what we say, right? But I will say this, I get people who you think are going to listen and they don't, right? And so I have found that in franchising, you have to be a life coach as much as you have to be a franchisor. I don't think that there's ever going to be a time, that you could say that you're doing, you have so many candidates that you can pick from 100 and you're only going to take one. I mean, that's just crazy to me. I mean, maybe I'm doing something wrong, but I don't see that happening. If I have, let's say I have each week, you know, two people that are interested. Forget about a pool of people just want to buy it, right? I'm just two people interested,
Mhm.
right? You're trying to, you're hoping that you can figure out a way to make something work that fits what they're trying to do, right? And maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. I don't know. But, I don't, what we try to look for, let's just say if we're trying to find an ideal candidate, right? For me, it's just somebody who wants to do better than they're doing now, right? They want to take their life to a new level, right? They want to become a business owner, right? And reap the benefits of that, right? I want somebody who is willing to put the work in, right? Not sit there and bitch that when there's no phone calls coming in that, oh my God, what are we going to do? Facebook isn't working this week, right? Well, if you sit here and look at your phone all day long and wonder why it's not ringing, maybe that's the problem, right? Maybe you should go out and make the phone ring. Okay. That's, vital, right? Because it's never going to be every day. There's 100 phone calls and people are just beating you down to, hey, come paint my house. I'll pay whatever you ask. If it was that easy, we wouldn't have very hard jobs. But that's part of the hard work, the dedication, willing to change, right? Willing to change their mindset, right? Because I've noticed with having all different levels of types of people as franchisees, everybody has their own unique challenge, right? There's not one person so far that's perfect, right? I'm not perfect, that's for sure, right? I can be a challenge. But as far as a franchisee goes, I will be surprised and surprised forever how many people buy franchises in general and think they know better, right? And then it takes them 6 months or a year to finally say, oh, maybe I should have listened to you from the beginning, right? And I think and the negative I would say of franchising, maybe in our space, is that people think they're going to buy a franchise and they're just instantly going to make money. Like it's just like you bought the franchise, now people are going to call and just pay you, right? And there's no part in the middle, right? There's not the work part, and so I think that's a challenge because how do have the realistic expectation of what's going to happen, right? And I try to explain this to franchisees all the time. You're only going to get out of it what you put into it. If you put 50% effort in, the return's only going to be 50%, right? Um, that's all different levels, right? So anyway, so basically, what kind of franchisee are we looking for? Just somebody who, A, wants to work hard, is willing to put the effort in, is willing to adapt and change, and honestly, the last thing would be just want to grow, right, as a person. So those are great things, right? You can't ask for more than that. And but like I said, nobody's perfect out there. I don't, I see these stories online and on LinkedIn especially, and how people are turning down candidates left and right, and but they're still selling 100 franchises in a year. I'm like, what am I doing? Like I feel like I must be the misfit of this operation. But I'd rather, do it a little bit on a pace of, kind of gradually, I want to be the overnight success that took 10 years, right? Where, I want to have the franchisees who started still there 10 years later, right? I don't want to have a franchisee come in who has spent his money and he doesn't put the right effort in or doesn't work, and next thing you know, he's upset and he wants to get out, right? Like to me, that's failing. If I failed, right? So, yes, you try to get the right people, but I think with the realistic expectation, I think that the results are relative.
Social media is a wonderful thing for expectations, isn't it?
Well, it makes you feel bad about yourself for sure, right? Like, I feel like, man, am I not doing this right? But, look, I have nothing. I don't know anybody, right? I don't know people. You just know what you see online and, create a campaign and it's working for them. But if you ever pull back the curtain, that's when you want to make sure that what's really happening. And
Yeah.
our curtain is pretty open. We don't have any curtains here. We just, we keep it real. If I may give you answers you don't like, I may tell you something that you're not expecting to hear, but I'd rather be honest with you and then, so in that conversation of vetting franchisees, I feel like I don't purposely ever tell anybody that they're not interested, but maybe the conversation we have about being honest and the expectations and like, how much money they can make or potentially make or how much work is being involved, I'm honest with them, right? And so that may root out people who just want the, expect the easy way. Right. So maybe not on purpose, I'm rooting people out, but maybe just based on that conversation, it happens naturally.
Absolutely. And I'm curious if there is an average day for your franchisee, what is a day in the life of a franchisee for Richard's Painting look like?
Well, the average, truthfully, we have franchisees that are all different spectrums. We have a couple who are some people who are like transitioning from a corporate job, and they're kind of working remotely. So they're kind of they want to start the business, and then once they get it to the point where they can leave their job, they're kind of making an income already, and it's a smoother transition, right? Where if they do $150,000 in sales their first year, they're feeling pretty good, right? They don't the expectation is not to do this great. And so hopefully by year two, they're saying, okay, I feel like there's enough momentum and enough money they can transition, right? But their day is everybody's day, no matter the level they're in, is going to be similar, right? You're going to be since our franchisees, we want them to be involved in the business. We want them to understand it, right? We want them to know when they have a conversation with the customer or the guys or girls working, they have an idea what's going on, right? So, having knowledge and training and learning about the business is really important. But like, they're going to get the job started. They're going to do the estimates. They're going to, send out estimates, send out invoicing, build the relationships with the customers, and then outside relationships to build their network, so they're basically the face of the company every day, right? That's, so far that's what everybody is. So how that day goes, it's up and down with everybody. I would say this, the more that they do, the more successful they are, right? So I would, I try to tell some of them, like, if there's nothing going on, that doesn't mean you don't do anything. You have to do something to make something go on. Because we have a couple franchisees who, geez, I have a kid, 21 years old, right? A little bit immature. I have another, I say kid, he's 23. Right. And so their motivation level is way different than maybe somebody who's 45, who's lived life a little bit, that this is their last chance. They got to make it happen. So yeah, everybody's day is different. But
Mhm.
you can make your day as hard or easy as you want, right? I try to really coach people on if you make it complicated, it will be, right? So let's try to keep it simple. Let's work on the things that are in front of us that we have to work on, that need to be handled in the moment, and don't stress yourself out about things that you can't control, right? Many franchisees will be giving estimates or a bid on a job, and they'll be stressing out, well, what if I have to paint this or what if I have to do that? And I'm like, well, why don't we worry about it if we get the job, right? Then we can focus on it, right? You're stressed, why don't we worry about the 5 jobs you already have, right? And then we can, work those jobs and be concentrating on them. And then if the other people say yes, then we'll worry about it. But, so, talking about a daily, at the beginning, when you only hire one guy or one girl to paint, um, your day is pretty open, right? And, your day doesn't get more complicated or busier, I should say, until you start to hire three, four, five, six people. Now you're running two or three jobs at once. Now you're going to be spread out a little bit. And then eventually, once hopefully get to, hiring seven, eight, maybe 10 employees, now you're at the point where, okay, now you can hire a salesperson, right? And then you can relieve yourself of that, kind of duty. And so as the business grows, you can kind of step back in different parts of it in order to help grow the business instead of working in it all the time.
Mhm. Some franchisors like to bundle um, multi-units. Is that Richard's painting? What's your thoughts on somebody that comes to you and says, Richard, I want to buy 4 territories today?
I would say Richard Painting's not for you. That's basically it because it's possible, right? But we like to our territories are relatively smaller territories. We try to be the big fish in a small pond. The way our marketing and the way our business works, in order to keep it economical and keep it low cost, is it stays in a tighter area. If you have a territory size that's 50 miles in radius, you have to look at it like this. The marketing budget has to be so intense because people from 50 miles away from each other don't know each other, right? They're never going to be able to communicate, say, hey, Richard's painting, they painted my place. They did such a great job, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't happen. So you have to create this all the time in order, and then, you know, and so for our business, it doesn't work. Now, I will say this, in the same function, let's say you're going to be in Austin, Texas, right? It's impossible to have one territory because in a 3 mile radius, there are 300,000 people, right? Our typical franchise location has 150, right? So so what we're trying to do is say, okay, I acknowledge that you can't have a 3 mile territory. It's like, it's just impossible. So what we're doing is saying, okay, I don't want to sell multiple territories, but in instances where the population is so great, in order to make it fair for everybody, well, you're going to buy 3 territories. I'm only going to make you pay for two, right? And to try to reduce that cost for you, right? And then what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the middle of that territory and then work our way out as we grow, right? Because at the end of the day, you're going to get 3 territories. You're going to have 700,000 people. That's a tremendous amount of people. I mean, especially we have like a location here in Lexington, North Carolina. Lexington, North Carolina has 27,000 people, right? I mean, just this past year, profit and loss, he did $550,000 in gross sales, right? And 27,000 people. So, I try to explain to people, like, do the math, right? If you have 700,000 people, the potential, obviously you could do this, right? Not saying it's always going to go that way, but that's the potential, right? So I think but I will say this to answer your question, we're not seeking people out to buy multiple territories. I'm not trying to hurt people, right? And I think that's in our model anyway. For us, that wouldn't be ideal, because I already know they're not going to have the right mindset, right? They're going to use this great word I love to hear, scale. They want to scale this business, right? And basically, scaling means I want to start a business and I don't really want to work in it. I want to do all these other things and have this business, right? I want people who want to be involved, who want to be proud to wear the Richards Painting shirt, the uniform, right? We wear painters pants. We're painters, right? Not saying we can't get more people, to have a little bit, different mindset, but you have to have the mindset that you want to be involved in that business. And having 6 territories is just not going to be it.
Hmm. You're in year 4, or you're
Yeah.
starting year 4 of Richard's painting franchising. What does your vision look like going from zero to an overnight success in 10 years?
So, my goal, truthfully, is to be the best painting franchise in the country, right? What does that mean? Maybe it means we're the largest. I don't know. Maybe it means we have the most territories. Maybe it means we have the happiest franchisees. Maybe it means, we have best customers, really happy employees. Those are goals, right? Like I know if you do that, all the other things take care of themselves, right? You can't go wrong if you keep putting out a good product, right? So that's the goal. Now, numbers wise, you know, I really believe Richard's Painting could be, different than many other painting franchises, especially numbers wise because of our territory sizes, right? You're talking about, I think most of the other painting franchises, if you explored all of them, they all are multiple territory owners, right? There's very few single territory units, right? So for us, I really know we could be over 500 locations, in 15 years, 20 years, who knows what that is, right? But I know that can happen based on just here in North Carolina, where I am in the Charlotte region, we have 10 locations around Charlotte, right? And that's only one small part. We just have one coming to Raleigh, here in a couple months. And once we get up there, I feel like we can have 10 locations just up there, right? So North Carolina could have, 40 locations or more just in North Carolina. So, as you spread out throughout the country, I think that's the potential. And I really think that we could go international. I know that's weird and most people don't think about that, but a Ricardo painting or Richard's painting or whatever you want to call it somewhere, just because our model works in so many circumstances. The big painting franchises that are out there that are the subcontractor model, which is 95% of them, they all rely on high volume to work, right? You cannot run those businesses if your volume is low. The math that never works. With ours, the advantage we have is that we can work big or small, right? If we have a franchisee, like I said, in Lexington, North Carolina, and let's say the best he can do in his market is going to be 750,000, right? He can earn, up to, around 30% profit or more on that, right? So, he's doing really well for only doing, $750,000, right? So, and if let's say the economy slows down and he can only do 600, he's still doing well, right? So I feel like that's our big advantage, by having, you know, um, you know, the market in a different way than most people look at it. Many painting franchises have convinced people that it's only successful if you use subcontractors. I feel 100% opposite. But they're all successful in their own right, so I can't like there's no hating going on, right? It's just I'm just giving my perspective, right? And why do I think I'm better, right? I'm not going to sit here and say why I think I'm not as good, but I definitely believe we have an advantage in that situation. So if we go to a different country, we go to different markets, has somebody call me today from Dublin, Georgia, right? And he's like, oh, I think I got to be like 40 miles the other way. And I'm like, I don't think you do. Like, I'm telling you right now, I think you're going to be fine where you are. And, in my conversation with him, I said, I hope you give me the opportunity to prove you wrong. Right. Look, obviously in life or a franchise, you can't guarantee anything, right? But I do know, especially in smaller markets, you don't have people doing Facebook ads, Google ads, putting yard signs out, right? So you instantly come in with this advantage, and especially a smaller market, that you can actually grow a little bit quicker in that market because there's really no big competition. Now, when you have a bigger competition area, you got to have a different strategy, right? You got to do different things. So I think that's where we can be really successful because what we try to do is take each location, each franchisee, and figure out where they are, what's going on in their circumstances, their demographics, their people, and try to come up with a plan that's going to help them be the most successful.
That's great. Richard, what haven't I asked you today that you want people to know?
Gosh, I don't even know. I think we went through a lot of it. I feel like pretty thorough. I think what I want people to know is that we're just getting started, right? And I'm not even really that good at this yet, right? Like I feel like, we could be better, right? And I want to get better. Um, but with the basics that we do, the simple formula that we use, it's effective, right? And it works everywhere. And I want the people out there that are thinking about purchasing a painting franchise or a service franchise, to not be scared off because we don't have 20 people who did $5 million in sales, right? Maybe you might be the person that can join our system and prove to people that we can do millions of dollars in sales, right? Maybe that's, something to think about. Maybe um, let's prove everybody else wrong and try to cultivate a different, thought process. Um, and the only other thing I could say is, I'm super proud, super excited for our future, to see where we can go, um, and take Richard's painting and have Richard's painting on every block, every neighborhood, and every community. And one day, when I was really young and I first started painting, I had this weird dream that I wanted to, have Richard's painting be as recognizable as McDonald's, right? Where every time they saw the logo, they didn't have to think about what it was, they just knew it, right? And if we can get to that brand recognition at some point, then I'll know I've done everything I could.
And what's the best way for anybody interested in working with you to get a hold of you?
The best way is you can go through richardspainting.net, and there's a tab for franchise with us. You can call 704-856-8101. Ginger will answer the phone, and she'll put you in contact with me. And that's pretty much about it. And if you're looking for an estimate for painting, in case you're wondering, you can also go to richardpainting.net and scroll down to locations and pick a location near you and schedule an estimate with that owner in that area.
Richard, thank you very much for being on the Successful Franchisees Beautiful View. And thank you all for watching. Stay safe and win every day.